Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. Now before we begin, here's some channel housekeeping before we move on to let you know what's going on with the channel. First of all, I'm not changing the type of content, it's still one-on-one stories between me and you. 2. You'll notice that my videos might be a little bit shorter and not just the same length every day because I'm going to focus on one main story and a mood booster. Of course, the main story will always have an update and there will be no fluff. Only 3 relevant comments and no more because I know you guys want the story, additional context if needed, and the update. Alright, housekeeping over. Let's move on with today's first story. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole with an H, and it's by user Major Contact 4009. Am I the a-hole for marrying my sister's ex? Me, 27 female, and my sister, 29 female, have been fighting recently for something that I thought got resolved a long time ago. I've debated posting for like a week now, but I figured someone not directly involved would be good to hear from. A couple of months ago, I married my husband, Greg, 29 male, after being together for 4 years. We met each other working at the same office, and I developed this huge crush on him. I was pretty sure he was into me too, so I decided to bring it up to my sister, Alicia. Alicia and Greg had dated in middle school when they were both 13ish, and because it had been so long and at such a young age, I didn't think there would be an issue, but I still wanted to check. I didn't want to accidentally start dating some long-lost love of her life or something, so I thought I would clear the air by asking. She seemed a bit surprised because I don't think she was expecting to hear about her middle school ex-boyfriend randomly so many years later, but after we talked for a bit, she said she didn't really care. So I thought, cool, I've got the go-ahead. I thanked her and moved on with things, and a little while later, Greg and I got together. It's never seemed to be an issue before recently. We hit all the milestones and she seemed to be happy for us. When he met my family again, they were a bit surprised, but things were fine. My sister was even one of my bridesmaids and seemed happy for me the entire time. Like, I haven't really thought of them dating in forever because it no longer seems relevant. I mean, she has a husband at this point, so it doesn't seem like a middle school boyfriend would be something to dwell on. We were with my family this Christmas and things were going just as fine as they usually are until my sister started handing out the presents she had gotten. Now, we don't get each other presents every year and people in my family typically aren't buying special presents for people they're not close to. So the in-laws don't get screwed or anything because they didn't buy every individual cousin a gift. But during my wedding planning, she said she wanted to get me something special for my first Christmas as a married woman, so it took me off guard. I looked sort of confused for a second, but I didn't want to be a bitch on Christmas, so I just smiled and watched everyone open their gifts. Lots of circumstances could cause someone not to be able to get a gift, so it was fine. But after she finished handing things out, she looked at me and said I wasn't getting anything because I had taken enough. I asked her what she meant because, huh? And she said I didn't have to be so weird to plot to take Greg from her. I'll admit I had a crush on him when I was 11, but I didn't plan on my life around dating in one day, huh? I grabbed her and pulled her into the other room and we started yelling at each other. I definitely said some nasty things because if she had an issue, why wouldn't she bring that up when I directly asked her? We both wound up leaving my parents' house early and her husband seemed super pissed. My mom texted that she was disappointed we fought at Christmas, which yeah, I get, but it's not like I did it intentionally. She's telling whatever family members will listen about how I stole her boyfriend and so they're mad at me. And I don't feel like I could be the a-hole, but I also can't tell. Greg's super pissed because she's been trying to message him about this and he doesn't get why this is such an issue. I've tried to speak with her a couple of times and I brought up how I asked her already for permission, but she says I took her off guard. So am I the a-hole? No, OP, you're not the a-hole. I don't know what's up with your sister, but she's acting incredibly weird. This is not the behavior of an adult. And even if it was, let's say, okay to behave like this, the fact that you asked her 4 years ago for like her blessing and she said she was okay, she didn't care, she was a bridesmaid for your wedding, should be enough for her to shut up about it if she has a problem now. Too late, man. Now, the fact that she's making a fuzz about this and that her husband is pissed about this says that there's something going on in the background that you're not aware of and you're some sort of scapegoat about this. Now, your parents being disappointed that you guys fought at Christmas, they should take that up with your sister and not you because she's the one that started this whole petty squabble. You don't get a Christmas gift because you already took enough? Get the F out of here. Just don't give me a Christmas gift, but don't say something like that. You're being ridiculous. So yeah, OP, you are absolutely not the a-hole, and your sister is behaving like a huge childish a-hole. Apart, she's also texting your husband? What the F? And what is your judgment regarding OP's situation? Or what would you do if you were in her shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. I'm Killy W says, wait, your sister is 29 and she's accusing you of stealing someone she dated briefly at 13? Despite the fact that she'd clearly moved on, married someone else, and had given you the go-ahead? Not the a-hole. Your sister, however, needs therapy. LividHave3343 says, you are definitely not the a-hole. Even asking her if it was okay to start dating Greg was kind of overcautious, but consider it, given they dated when they were children and she's married to someone else? I don't know what your relationship is normally like, but if this kind of outrageous scene is out of character, I would try to sit down and get to the bottom of what exactly she's upset about. Problems in her own marriage, perhaps? And OP responds, it's not like her at all, which is why I'm so surprised. We're not super close, but I've always considered us good sisters. Seneth74 says, I can't believe this is real, but if it is, then there is something else behind that outburst. Nobody trips out about a middle school boyfriend they didn't think about or talk to for years. There is some other issue bothering her, and you were just the most convenient thing she could blow up on. With her going off on you about Greg, my guess would be some issue between her and her husband. And OP responds, now that I've seen so many people mention that, that's what I'm thinking. In the morning, I think I'm going to ask my mom if she knows anything that could be going on between Alicia and her husband. They seemed fine before what happened, but so did she, so that's not a great judge on things, I guess. 2 Bionic Knees says, not the a-hole. Tell her to get a grip of herself because whatever is going on with her marriage, she's making an effing fool of herself and will regret it in the future when she's burned your relationship and comes seeking support. I'm kinda guessing something is majorly up with her marriage. Either she cheated and is looking to pass the blame like she's not happy and it would totally have been fine if she married Greg, but her husband wasn't the one, so it's not her fault. More likely he cheated or something, and so she's pissed about that and looking outside the marriage and fixating on the one that got away. If there is nothing wrong with her marriage and she just started acting like this, she's straight crazy. Additional information from OP's comments. My sister and Greg dated for less than a year, so they were both probably around 14? And from what they've both told me, they just sort of got bored of their relationship and stopped talking as much before Greg eventually broke things off. And I got her permission just because I was hoping to avoid a situation like this. I thought, hey, if we clear the air now, before anything's even happened, there's no chance of problems down the road. She isn't usually like this, so I'm hoping there's something else going on that I just don't know about to explain her behavior. My sister's husband was there during presents, so he has to be aware. Even though we definitely talked more away from everyone, she made it pretty clear why she was mad while we were still sitting around him. Also, she was 26 when she got married, and I'd say her wedding was a bit bigger because her husband has a wealthier family. She seemed fine after the wedding, and there was no drama then, at least that I know of. I hadn't thought about pregnancy. They mentioned trying, but we haven't heard any big news since. Okay, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and some people have been pitching the idea that there might be something going on between her sister and her husband. Not OP's husband, but the sister's husband. You know what I mean. And OP seems to agree with that. Also, she gave us a little bit more information as to what's going on when they broke up and all that stuff. So now it's time to move on to the update to see how the story ends. But before that, if you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and click that like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now let's move on with the update. Things are pretty tense right now in my family, but fewer people are mad at me now. A lot of you were correct about the marriage issues between my sister and her husband. The other night, my mom invited me over to talk about what was happening. First, she apologized for telling me she was disappointed. She and my dad were just upset there was drama on Christmas. I apologized for picking the fight during the gift exchange because I knew I definitely could have waited until later. She and my sister have been talking a lot the past couple of days. I have yet to talk to her in person. Alicia told my mom that her husband Chris had told Alicia that I had been flirting with him and I had seduced him. I would never effing do that. So this was a pretty big shock to hear. He had never been weird to me, so I had always been cordial, but I was in no way attracted to him. She had told my mom a couple of months back that Chris was interested in another woman, but never said who. They had been going to couples counseling to help, and Alicia told my mom it had been helping. We're not sure what caused her to snap at Christmas specifically, since beforehand she told my mom things were getting better. My mom had called her the night after we fought, and that's when my sister told her that I was the person Chris had been talking about. I just don't get why he'd pretend we had been flirting or why she'd even believe it. I've always been open about Greg, and I can't even think of the last time I've spoken to Chris without someone else present. I guess he wanted to avoid responsibility for something, but he didn't have to make that my issue. But the stealing comment she made towards me was because I guess she saw it as once a coincidence, two as a pattern, and thought I was some evil bitch who wanted every guy she had. When my mom called me over, she didn't think I was doing anything with Chris, but she still asked to make sure, which really hurt, to be honest. It's not like I can prove I'm not doing something, but she believes me at least. Since we've talked, she's been doing damage control on all the relatives, who my sister was telling I was stealing her husband. This whole thing would have been easier if she had just talked to me about it. My mom said she would try to talk to Alicia some more to convince her I was not trying to steal her husband. Greg's pissed. He's pissed at my whole family pretty much, but mostly Alicia and Chris. She texted Greg yesterday, "OP only loves you because you were mine." Oh wow, yeah, Alicia definitely needs some help. So I guess she doesn't believe my mom. Greg blocked Alicia after that. I don't know. I was hoping the reasoning would have been something else. I'm not sure what to do. I don't know if my relationship with her can come back from this. And I refuse to be anywhere near Chris. Well, OP, hopefully your sister can get a grip on what's going on and stop trying to blame you. Yeah, of course, this is all Chris's fault and she's taking it out on you because you're the easy target. Now, I would think your relationship could come back from this if she acknowledges reality and does something about it, like apologize to everyone and clear your name properly. Now, the one person I wouldn't ever be caught near again is Chris. So I don't know if she's gonna divorce him or what's gonna happen there, but you shouldn't be near him, and Greg is absolutely right to be pissed at everyone. Now, regardless of all of that, your and Greg's relationship is still solid, and that's what's important to me. So here's wishing you and Greg the best in the future, OP. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user MangoPhysical1308. Don't bother you anymore? Fine, I won't. I used to live in an apartment building that had shops on the main level. The building next door was the same. The two buildings shared a wall. My building had assigned parking and yellow paper notes to put in our car windows. A restaurant opened up in the building next door. Their owner, manager, and staff began parking in my spot as well as our neighbors. I spoke to the owner and she said she would talk to them, but I didn't think it would help. They were even parking in her spot. Every night I would get home, call them, and ask that the vehicle be moved. I was getting tired of this when one night they put the manager on because they were busy and didn't have time to deal with my request. He did do it, but told me they wouldn't do it again, and I was to stop calling them. I suggested they stop parking in my assigned spot. He told me he had too many staff to control where they parked, and he was sure they were not parking in my spot, and it was probably a customer. You know, because customers always park behind a business and then walk around to the front to get in. The next time I worked evening shifts. I got home, and this time there was a Range Rover parked in my spot. I dutifully called the tow truck and not the restaurant. I had to wait for a second tow truck because the first one was not equipped to move a vehicle of that type. Something about being jacked up and stuff. They explained it, and the wait was because I didn't know enough to answer their questions about the truck, so they could send out the right truck first. They towed it, and I went in and went to bed. A few hours later, I was awakened by a phone call from the towing company. I had towed the owner, and he was telling them that it was his parking spot and that I had no right to tow him. They were going to bill me for the tow. I told the caller about my landlord's parking permits, the numerous phone calls to have them move, about being told not to bother them anymore, and that his restaurant was in the next building with a separate parking lot. We said goodbye, and I never heard anything more about it. I also was able to park in my spot after. I told my neighbor, and he told me that just to be safe, I should tell the owner of the other building. I popped into her shop and told her. She replied with something to the effect of, "You towed the Range Rover!" And I said yes. She started to laugh and basically said, "Good for you," and told me it was the restaurant owner's truck. Still makes me smile when I think of it. Well, OP, they told you not to bother them again, and if you did, they wouldn't do anything about it, so you did what you had to do and get that truck towed. Simple as that. Just don't park in other people's parking spots. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.